free-range meat shopping. Kai has a new stalking setup he's keen to christen to fill that chiller and feed those customers.
That'll feed a family for a very, very long time.
Ballistic tips, shooting uphill and downhill. What do you need to know about holdover? We find out in Bristol. And police gun policy. I go to the launch of a national gun surrender, plus I meet the first police gun grab victim to get his guns back. We have a set of new Viperflex shooting sticks priced at £330 to give away. We have news, we have hunting YouTube. Welcome to Fieldsports Britain.
Are you tired of not knowing where your food comes from and the ever-rising prices? Here at Fieldsports Channel, we are opening the Wild Aisle. Click, bang and collect, also available.
We all like new kit, new toys, the shiny stuff. Well, Kai's just received a package brimming with stalking essentials to get his teeth into. From normal rounds to a Bagara rifle, these are Kai's new click and collect wild shopping necessities.
It all looks very sparkly. What have you got?
Quite fancy, isn't it? So this is a Bagara Crest in 308. I've got a Meopta Optica 6 as well, which is a really, really nice scope. I'm familiar with the Meopta anyway because I used to have the Etermis on my 243, so zeroed it in. It's taken 2 or 3 shots. Now we've got it sorted. We're going to head out to one of my missions about 20 minutes from here, and then we're going to try and get onto a spring fallow buck before the end of the season.
He needs venison, lots of it, to feed his catering business Game and Flames. Now, the image through the Meopta Optica 6 gets filmed through a new piece of technology called a trigger cam. Not only does Kai have to talk and shoot straight, he's on second camera duties too.
It's really cool to actually see through a scope.
Well, yeah, you want to see through my eyes as well, don't you? You want to kind of get the feeling that I'm feeling when I'm eyeing up a deer and about to take that shot, that you can see exactly what I'm looking at.
Seeing stuff through your eyes makes me feel quite nervous, actually.
You don't even want to go there, David. It will give you nightmares for days.
With Kai happy that the Bagara Crest is on song with the 170 grain Norma ammo, he moves back to 200 to check drop-off.
For my kind of confidence, I'm not going to shoot anything further than 200, so I need to kind of see where that bullet's going. So we'll put 3 shots now, 3 shots back there, and then we'll head out.
We're filming this mid-April, just as the ground is drying up nicely. And of course, while the bucks are still in season. It's a real pleasure to be out, especially as dry ground means less physical effort.
I know I've got my backpack, and I love my backpack. But it's the fact that you can drive and pick the things up once you shoot them, especially when they're bucks. It makes a big difference.
David asks Kai whether he sees outings like this as popping to the open-air supermarket and browsing the free-range meat aisle.
Do you feel like you're going shopping?
A little bit, yeah. You know, you're going out there, seeing what takes your interest. Might not find anything you like. But yeah, I kind of live off it really, to be honest with you. So it is like going, free-range meat shopping, ethical, ethically harvested, and just, yeah.
How many meals do you reckon you can get out of a carcass to serve a family? A
fallow doe, which will roughly be between 28 to 35, 36 kilos, once it's larder ready. That'll probably do 40, 50 portions, no problem at all. There's a lot of meat there, and if you butcher it and get the most out of it, trim those ribs, soups, stews, there's so much you can do. Use the whole carcass basically. That'll feed a family for a very, very long time.
After quite a mooch, Kai takes us to some different ground where he has taken 40 animals this year.
There's lots of woodland blocks around this area that don't get shot, so there's a lot of refuge. So it's trying to catch them at the right time when they come onto this ground. But there's a lot that live in the woodland to the right of me, and they transient through to the woodland across there. So this is kind of a popular crossing point as well. So, but yeah, we've shot quite a few, and I think next year we'll look to do the same amount. Is here? No, the one in front of it, the big one. Ready? Go for the middle one. can't see it, but it is a pretty stable shot, that one.
Good. It looked good.
It looked good to me as well, but we'll have to try and see. They just appeared from nowhere, didn't they?
Yeah. Well,
right. It felt like a very stable shot, so
good.
Go for the middle one.
The shot looked and sounded good. There's a stream between us and them, so we need to walk parallel to find our crossing.
There is a lot of bucks here, so he's a nice one, but there is some real big nice bucks in this area here, including some white ones that we don't touch. So it's kind of nice to be able to get onto something like that and then be able to drive and pick it up.
I can see this is a major benefit.
Massive. No, it's great. It is great. So yeah, we can get the truck and pick it up, and then we don't have to drag it, what, half a mile back to the truck or something like that, which is, or carry it in my backpack, because they are quite heavy.
It's been just a few hours from unboxing to shooting his first deer with the Bergara.
We zeroed it an hour and a half ago.
Yeah.
The first shot we took, we've taken a lovely buck like this. I mean, it's not the biggest, maturest buck we can have, but it's not a bad one. Perfectly good shot, took out the vitals. Probably that shot will take out the heart. We'll have a look inside, but because of the angle he's standing, it probably quartered out a little bit, probably out through the diaphragm. I don't think it would hit anything inside, but that's straight through the shoulder there, which I'm very pleased about. Exactly where I was aiming. You see the coats changing as well, actually, because it's all getting into their summer coats. But these antlers won't be lasting much longer, they'll be coming off.
Do you reckon he is weight wise?
I reckon he's going to be probably about 52. Like, once the head's off and we've gutted it out, because that's the larder weight that I normally go by, it'd be in his 50s, 52 kilo, I reckon.
Yeah. The heart's gone.
The heart's gone. Straight through the heart. Lungs as well. Hasn't gone through the stomach or any other kind of digestive system. It's just kind of crossed over through the diaphragm, really. Just put blood into the cavity, but no, pleased with that. Right, we'll go and let that cool down a little bit, go and get the truck and then load him up.
All in all, it's been a pretty successful afternoon's shopping. To find out more about Kai's kit, head to ruag.co.uk, and Kai's own website is gameandflames.com. Thank you, Kai. Next up, the Bergara in a bun of news anchors. It's David on the Fieldsports Channel News Stump.
This is Fieldsports Channel News. The National Rifle Association is calling on all UK shooters to respond to the Health and Safety Executive's report on the banning of lead ammunition. The group says the proposals are a threat to the future of target shooting. The HSE's report proposes restrictions on the use of lead bullets for outdoor target shooting and hunting, plus restricting the sales of use of lead shot. The 6-month public consultation closes on the 6th of November 2022. There are allowances only for authorised athletes. BASC says that it will challenge the proposed restrictions where there are viable alternatives to lead.
The issue of lead is one that has hung over the sector for an awfully long time. And I do think that people are reflecting on now, actually in light of the UK REACH announcement, on the positivity of a voluntary transition, which has in essence given the sector, for shotgun ammunition at least, a bit of a head start on this stuff.
Boris Johnson's government has dropped plans to ban trophy hunting imports. The Queen's speech included no proposals to ban trophy imports. Prominent anti-Sir Roger Gale MP claims that a ban could go ahead, though political commentators have dismissed his comments. Foreign media reported that the government is still committed to a trophy ban, even though it isn't. Meanwhile, Namibia is raising its voice against critics of trophy hunting. Environment Minister Pohamba Shifeta told world leaders in Brussels that bans are bad for conservation and the livelihoods of rural communities. Shifeta wants the countries considering restrictions on the importing of trophies to consult the nations affected and consider the consequences of their actions. The New York Senate is the latest legislator to debate a bill to ban the import of hunting trophies.
A yes vote on this act is essentially a big old middle finger to hundreds of thousands of Africans and their ability to sustainably utilize a resource that is actually theirs. It's incomprehensible that something like this, something that is violating human rights, is actually being voted on in a country that's halfway around the world from where the actual resource being utilized actually lives.
The Duke of Norfolk and the Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust have a new project to boost the population of curlews on the South Downs. Using a technique known as head starting, the project will take eggs from the Duke's and Lord Bolton's estates in Yorkshire, incubate them and hatch them on the Duke's estates in Sussex. The Trust is working with Natural England to monitor the released birds through radio and GPS tracking. The aim is to explore if head starting is an effective technique to reintroduce curlew to the south of England. Meanwhile, a study by Sheffield University is investigating why some of the curlew eggs laid by the endangered birds are fragile and crumbly. The numbers of breeding Eurasian curlews have fallen by 65% since 1970. A new thermal footage clip is doing the rounds of a badger trying to steal a lamb. Posted in groups across Facebook, the video shows the badger going up to ewes in a field. The film ends with the badger successfully attacking a lamb on the ground. And there's more on this in our Big Garden Pestwatch later in the show. Around 200 activists have trespassed across the Duke of Somerset's Devon estate to demand more land access. Bury Pomeroy Castle is a well-known Devon shoot with over 2,000 acres and 27 drives. Among the signs the protesters carried was one saying, "Less room for pheasants, more room for peasants." Prominent environmental activist Guy Shrubsole, who was on the protest, posted a photo of wire and dead pheasants dumped in undergrowth, which he says he saw on the shoot. The government recently shelved a review into extending the right to roam. The number of flying insects in the UK has dropped by nearly 60%, according to a new survey. Scientists who produced the report say life on Earth depends on insects. The British survey collected information by drivers recording the number of bugs squashed on number plates via the app Bugs Matter. Researchers compared the results of summer 2021 with those collected in 2004. They claim the number of flying insects is declining an average of 34% a decade. A new conservation group bursting with celebrities is coming under fire for claims it's making about saving species. Rewrite Extinction says 300 people and 7 charities have come together and saved 625 species. Its promo video featured many famous faces, including BBC TV presenter Chris Packham. The US Fish and Wildlife Service has asked the group to post the names of the species it claims to have saved. Amy Dickman, a professor of wildlife conservation at Oxford University, has raised concerns about the messaging and fears the group could do more harm than good by oversimplifying the challenges of wildlife conservation. Chris Packham has admitted the group got things wrong, but says people should be more tolerant and see the bigger picture. Police in Norway are investigating a mysterious illness affecting a herd of 400 reindeer. More than 100 animals have fallen ill and died or been slaughtered. The Veterinary Institute has been to Nordland to investigate. It has sent samples abroad as autopsies of the reindeer are inconclusive. It has been established the cause isn't due to bacteria, viruses, parasites or a lack of food and water. Police and the Food Safety Authority are baffled. Thank you to Per Holmseth for the story. A 7-foot-long sturgeon has been key in helping US police unlock a massive poaching ring. Officers in California found the gigantic fish still alive in a vehicle when they stopped Andrew Chow. The Department of Fish and Wildlife had been watching the 31-year-old for almost a year. California recognises white sturgeon as a species of special concern. It released the fish unharmed. The arrest led police to 8 other suspected poachers. Officers say they caught at least 36 sturgeon between them in order to remove the eggs and sell the caviar. Police also found the remains of 5 deer, illegal drugs and 2 guns. Police are investigating the theft of a large bronze hair statue at the Badminton horse trials. The statue, priced at £19,000, was taken from a trade stand at the event in South Gloucestershire. The statue, made by Somerset artist Jan Sweeney, is 4 foot tall. Police say the item's considerable weight means more than one person helped remove it. Thanks to Richard Walton for the story. An Irish game dealer has delivered a van full of meat from Tipperary to Poland to help Ukrainian refugees. Deer stalker Paul Fletcher and his son, also Paul, prepare game meat at their business Premier Game in Ireland. The crisis in Ukraine moved them to take action. Young Paul drove a van of meat to the Ukrainian border, all of it donated by Premier Game. Paul made the 5,000-mile round trip alone and funded all the costs himself.
It was an amazing journey through all these countries. Things that I thought that would not affect me on this journey certainly did when I arrived in Ukraine. It affected me emotionally and mentally from what I have seen and what is happening to these people who are being ousted from their homes and businesses because of one person's greed.
You are now up to date with Fieldsports Channel News. Stuck in the stories, fishing for facts.
Thank you, David. Now, Kai is back with a smoked venison recipe.
The great thing about the smoked venison haunch is you can either have it hot or have it in sandwiches for the following few days. It's amazing for that. The hot smoked venison is an incredibly easy dish. First, I'll set the smoker to 280 degrees Fahrenheit, that's about 137 degrees Celsius. This here is a 2 kilogram piece of venison haunch. I'm going to coat with olive oil and then we're going to sprinkle over some SPG, that's salt, pepper and garlic. We're going to place this in with some cherry briquettes for roughly about an hour to an hour and 15. This all varies on the internal temperature, which should be 55 to 60 degrees Celsius, roughly about 131 degrees Fahrenheit. And there we have it. The Bradley smoker gives you that consistency and the reliability that you need. It's an easy way of cooking. If you're a home cook or an experienced chef, I promise you, you're going to have a lot of fun with this one.
And there is a 20% discount for viewers on Bradley smokers. Just use the word Fieldsports, all capitals, all one word at checkout. And there's a link to that in the description below. Now, our Big Garden Pestwatch competition is bearing fruit. Scott Mossop posted this on the Fieldsports for All Facebook group saying, I can legally control one, but not the other. Thanks Will Scrivens in Monmouthshire for this video of magpies raiding nests in his garden. Sadly, he says, the only safe shot there is with a camera. Thanks also to Andy Kelly, who sends me this film of a stoat raiding a lapwing nest from the Peak District Moorland group on Facebook. Doug Pocklington from Lincolnshire sends in an egg-stealing fox shot by a friend of his, Carl. They would like to know what egg it is. Any ideas in the comments below, please. Josh Hopkins shot this fox about 300 yards off a pig unit with half a piglet in its jaws. A definite stock killer, that one. Well done, Josh. And Steve Kearney sends me a video he took of 2 jackdaws herding, then pulling a quail chick through mesh. One scares them and the other one waits, then pecks and pulls them through. Thanks for all of these. Remember, we are mostly after video footage or a still photo of pests or vermin stealing eggs and nestlings, though keep that livestock coming too, so we can show the public why we need to control pest species. The best one will win a Browning trail cam priced at more than 100 quid. Next, ballistic tips from Braces Range outside Bristol.
So in this video we are going to be looking at how shooting both uphill and downhill can affect the bullet's point of impact. We're going to look at how we can calculate to prevent high hits or misses altogether. Some of the situations we find are people that may be shooting at things like mountain goat or up in a stand. It's a general misconception that when shooting uphill or downhill at targets, that shooting downhill the bullets would hit low and shooting uphill the bullets would hit high. This is generally not the case. What we find is that in both instances you would end up hitting high due to basically not compensating for the angle and the slightly shorter distance that you would need to be zeroed for due to the effects of gravity on the round as it's fired. So the main principles of shooting over elevated positions into a lower position would be you would have to know the angle at which you are shooting down towards your target, and you would need to know the distance at which your target is at. With this, we can use either a cosine chart, or if you have it, there are apps on range finders and phones that will make the calculation for you to give you your true ballistic range to the target. This can also be used when shooting uphill. You would need exactly the same information. You would need to know your angle of shooting, and you would also need to know the distance to make the calculation. A general situation you may find yourself in is one like ourselves at the moment. You could be up in a high stand, an animal could present itself in front of you, where we may need to take sight and take the shot. Unless we're shooting at very extreme ranges, we're talking sort of over 300 meters, or the angle is very acute and extreme, you won't notice enough difference between point of aim and point of impact to really need to worry about making these kind of calculations on the fly. It would still be know your rifle, know your scope, point and shoot. If you are expecting to shoot over these kinds of distances, at these kinds of angles, again, the best advice would be to know your rifle and know how to adjust the sights accordingly to make these kind of shots. In layman's terms now, if I point this 300 Win Mag down at that deer target there, and I place a crosshairs, the likelihood that I'm shooting any higher than about an inch and a bit over that is going to be slim. When you're looking at a kill zone of a target that's about this kind of size, if your practical accuracy is a circle of about 2 inches, even a 2-inch drop on that target is still going to have the desired effect.
Now, Braces is holding an open day for rifle shooters and people who want to be rifle shooters. It is sponsored by Blaser and will feature a range of products for you to try out. It's on the 11th of June 2022 at Braces Range just south of Bristol. If you want to go, link is bit.ly/bracesday 2022. That's in the description below, and it's £50 to cover the ammunition, money that you will get back if you buy a rifle or scope on the day. Now, more shopping. Our new hip flask. It's made of steel, rather like us. It is lasered with our stylish logo and priced at £21.95 plus postage. It's in our shop and there's a link to it in the description below. Send that link to your children and they will reply with a flask for Father's Day. Guaranteed. We also give away stuff for free on Fieldsports channel. How would you like a set of Viperflex rifle sticks priced at £330 and kindly donated by Viperflex? The easiest way to win them is to sign up to our Fieldsports Nation membership scheme. They get to watch Fieldsports Extra each week. There's a link to that in the description below, and watch Fieldsports Extra and you could win those sticks. Next, our news feature, and it's a good news story this week. I'm not sure how much of a handle the Home Office has on the legal ownership of guns. It seems to be in the hands of the police constabularies to do what they like. As you may know, Fieldsports News has been covering the gun grab by Devon and Cornwall Constabulary. Here is the latest. Devon and Cornwall police swooped on Gary Ivey's home in Plymouth in 2021 and seized his guns, including sub-12-foot-pound air guns. Today he's at Devon and Cornwall headquarters in Exeter and he gets them back.
It's been a long 8 months. It's had a massive impact on my life, children's lives. I've been very lucky. I've got some really good friends, family, everyone's pulled together, partner. Some great references from the neighbours, colleagues. Yeah, even just don't know what to say really. And luckily we didn't have to go to court. We managed to avoid that. A deal was reached and I've just been and collected them up now. It's fantastic.
Any damage? They all right?
Actually very good. Yeah, I did have a good look through. We checked all the serial numbers and yeah, I must say they were in very good condition in all fairness.
You recommend Devon and Cornwall Police gun storage facilities?
Not in the long term.
We will come back to Gary, his story and the story of other gun certificate holders who have seen their guns seized by armed police, often at night, is just one part of a national picture about guns and how we police them. What sort of guns have you got on the table there in front of you?
So these are just a couple of typical examples that you'd expect from a surrender. Just something like this, which is Second World War Webley revolver, and again we see these still being found on with quite fair numbers, to be honest, from First World War, Second World War trophies that have been brought back and again been lying around in lofts for decades. Sometimes people, you know, when they move into a house, clear out the loft and then they find a weapon like this, they don't really know what to do with it. Gets thrown in the back of a cupboard somewhere, bit of a worry, don't really know what to do. And what we're saying is if you've got something like this that you found in the house, hand it in.
I've come to Birmingham to the West Midlands Police Force for the launch of the first national surrender since 2019. National surrender, of course, is part of a suite of activities the police are employing to reduce the number of guns in the UK. And I want to know, are they cracking down on legal gun owners as well?
The shooting community is normally very good, very law-abiding, very responsible in the use and storage of guns. So that we're not really aiming then at that community. If they do have a gun that they no longer need and they want to, you know, and they want to hand it in, that's absolutely fine. But the type of people we're aiming at are those people who might, in their loft or hanging on their wall, might have a weapon that's been in the family for years. They might have thought it's an antique. So we're encouraging people like that to check the status of that weapon.
So it was 2019, I believe, the last surrender. So it was predominantly shotguns, interestingly, but mixed in with that, again, as you'd expect, a lot of war trophies and things like that.
And how many of those shotguns were licensed and how many were unlicensed?
Again, most of them would be completely unlicensed. The vast majority of people who own firearms in the UK legally are perfectly law-abiding citizens. But I think we do know this, there is a pool of firearms that are unregistered. And they are a threat for the criminal use space.
Back in Exeter, and certificate holder Gary has felt the rough end of police treatment over his legally held guns, and all because of an unproven allegation against him from an ex dating from years ago.
Yeah, because initially it was done by way of, obviously the officers turned up, so it was a case that was worded quite strongly that I should hand my firearms to them without a letter of revocation, which I felt I should do at the time, being law-abiding citizen, so I did. That was probably late part of October 21. And then the day before Christmas Eve, the letter arrived from Devon Cornwall of the formal revocation. So obviously I had 3 weeks to appeal that, which was a bit of a concern because it was a postal shutdown. I did have a solicitors in place. So as soon as I received that letter, I gave it to them and they assured me that the 1st of January, 2nd, the appeal process was put in, which then sort of stopped the clock. So the appeal process was able to happen.
Gary was running against the clock. You only have a limited time to put in an appeal, and it has to go through a Crown Court, which racks up costs. Ian Jensen is a former Metropolitan Police detective.
Gun holders in the UK are the most law-abiding people in the country. You have to be in order to keep the damn thing. Hearing that Devon and Cornwall have kind of been pressed into giving the guns back, it does show that they didn't have a good reason for taking it in the first place. And it's just, the shame is that being able to, you know, to instruct a barrister or a lawyer to put that kind of pressure on the police is expensive and very, very difficult. And at some stage, you know, at some stage, any one of us could find ourselves in that position.
What solicitors did you use and how much are they costing you?
Yeah, I used Shooting Law. I was talking to one of the guys in a similar situation. He recommended them. They were a fixed fee of £2,000, which appealed to me because you don't know what you could end up paying. You know, I mean, if it went to appeal, you lose the appeal, you could be looking at tens of thousands of pounds. It didn't come to appeal. There were a few deals offered, of which I wasn't happy with. One of which was sort of reapplying for your licence in a few months' time. And I felt really on the strength of my bundle and theirs, and talking to my barrister and solicitors, that I had a good case, and a deal was reached, that a mutual agreement that I could collect them today without having to go to appeal. The one thing I will say to everybody is don't overlook your insurance. Make sure you get insurance and read the small print, because the insurance won't just pay out regardless. I'm still out of pocket at the moment. I've had to pay actually £4,000 because the insurance have kicked in. They said they will, only a matter of weeks ago, said they will cover the final £1,000 outstanding. I've had to give them receipts, so hopefully I should have £4,000 coming back.
costs are one thing, the knock on the door when, as a certificate holder, you have already been judged a better citizen than most, is another. That's the big problem for the gun owners we have spoken to in Devon and Cornwall. Ian explains what went on in forces up and down the country after the Plymouth shootings in August 2021, when a legal gun owner went on a rampage and killed 5 people.
I think it was following the shooting in Plymouth. I think all the forces were asked to review their current firearms applications, processes, and assess whether they needed to revisit any existing licences. And I suppose if you look around the country, everybody else was looking at Devon and Cornwall and thinking, goodness me, have we got anybody who may fit the background of this fella in Plymouth who committed these crimes having been given his guns back? Because the Chief Constable himself is responsible for it, and it's he who signs just each and every certificate, I should imagine that he or his staff walked into every firearms unit that evening or the following day and said, go through everything, tell me we haven't done this ourselves. You had a clip on Fieldsports channel the other week where a couple of beat cops turned up to take somebody's guns, and when they were pressed on the reasons for being there, they kind of got a little bit tongue-tied and weren't completely certain about the rules or the law with which they were taken. And I'm not surprised, because it is a complex area of business why somebody should have a firearm and who can apply for them and the kind of certificates that are handed out. And unless you're an expert in that area, it's very difficult to be able to create an argument for it. And I would imagine that they've just been told, go round and take his guns. And that's it. And they've gone wandering around thinking, well, this will be easy enough. And clearly it wasn't. And they should have took somebody who was an expert in firearms licensing law.
Back at the gun surrender launch, Helen explains how officers would remove guns from a homeowner who wants to hand them in.
Well, that's down to each individual force, and again it will be down to the threat, harm and risk that forces feel they pose and what's available really. So if I rang up and said, Joe, I've got a shotgun in the loft, I think it was Uncle Ernest's, I need to hand it in. It may well be that my local force might send an ARV crew round, which will be a couple of officers, and they will be wearing blue uniforms by and large, as you say. And whilst they look tough, they are very professional, very friendly, and will be more than happy to come and take your weapon, and they'll do it in a very low-key, customer-friendly, I guess, kind of way, because these are people who have contacted us with the intention of giving us something which is dangerous, but they're trying to cooperate with us, and the officers will go out with that spirit.
I was happy that the Police National Ballistics Intelligence Service, NABIS, asked us to cover its 2022 gun surrender, even though we're all about legally held guns, and that's aimed at illegal guns. Fieldsports News has been critical of Devon and Cornwall Police Firearms Licensing's knee-jerk reaction to the Plymouth shootings, seizing guns from deer stalkers, pest controllers, pheasant shooters, even from at least one police officer who shoots, and for reasons they have in some cases not yet explained. There is one point of law that came out of the NABIS launch that's worth repeating to the legal gun-owning community in the UK. You
know, this is something from the sort of like late 1800s, 44 Russian caliber is typical. Other things like French 11mm French ordnance or 9.4 Dutch, other calibers like that. And again, we've had the antiques regs change in 2001, where 7 of these calibers that we recognise were being used on a fairly regular basis in crime have now been banned effectively. So if you own something like this before the regulation, it would be exempt under 58.2 as an antique. Post the regulations in 2001, you now find yourself in possession of a Section 5 firearm. So again, you need to check the status of antiques like this, and if you've got weapons that are now illegal, hand them in.
Our ideal aim would be that there aren't any illegally held guns available in the UK. That would be nirvana for us.
So what is the most unusual firearm handed in during a national gun surrender?
Probably the most interesting gun was handed in Newcastle in, I think it was either in 2017 or 2019, and it was handed in completely anonymously by, we believe, an elderly gentleman, and it was a weapon disguised as a walking stick, which is extremely interesting. And when we get weapons like that handed in, we liaise with our friends at the Royal Armouries and museums to see if they're particularly of interest, so they can be retained so people can see them.
As for Gary, he is going home relieved he is through his ordeal. Going to go shooting the weekend?
I'd like to think so. I'm working Saturday, I've got Sunday off, so scope's back on and get everything sorted out, and hopefully a roebuck just to seal the deal. Yeah, so.
For more about the other victims of Devon and Cornwall Police's gun grab, there's a link in the description below. And you will find a link to NABIS's 2022 gun surrender programme there too. Well done, Gary. Now let's get the rest of you your guns back. Next, from gun ownership to the wider world of hunting and shooting on YouTube, it is Hunting YouTube. This is Hunting YouTube, which aims to show the top hunting and shooting videos that YouTube has to offer. Yorkshire roe stalking is out after a buck with a client. It's one of those deer that are only going to give you seconds, and the client, Dino, works well under pressure. AM Bushcraft and Hunting is out for a mixed bag of crows, ferals and rats, all taken with a Theoban Rapid and sit down. His new scope, a Sightmark Wraith 4K Max. Hopefully, says David from Predator Protection UK who made it, this video will educate all those folks who walk down the meat aisle in the supermarket about where their food comes from. It's called Vermin Control. Why do we shoot foxes and corvids during the lambing season? Former US stock car racer and now NASCAR team owner Tony Stewart has put his $30 million American ranch on the market. This is the Ridiculous Real Estate channel, and it profiles Stewart's Indiana Pine Lodge with an indoor, yes indoor, trout stream at the heart of a magnificent hunting estate. Since we're on property, this fishing resort is on the market and causing a stir in Australia. The 30-hectare Swears Island resort in Queensland is offered for sale for just under $4 million Australian dollars. The Australian huntsman is out with his brother Tyson in the beautiful Victorian high country hunting sambar and fallow deer, and they're set upon by two aggressive dingoes. Thanks to Hunt and Gather with the Chatters, a YouTube channel that got in touch, here's their latest hunting film, Javelina in Arizona. And finally, the Conservation Imperative channel has re-released Rhino in Crisis: A Blueprint for Survival, a documentary first released in 2015. It's a 60-minute film that traces the history of wildlife conservation in southern Africa from the early days of the San people to the present day. That's it for this week. I have put all these films into a playlist for you. Click on the eye symbol top right or check this film's description. If you have a YouTube film you would like us to pop into the weekly top 8, email me the link, charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv. Well, that's it for this week. If you haven't done so already, please whiz over to our website, fieldsportschannel.tv. You can click to like us there on Facebook and on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and best of all, pop your email address into our register page and we'll contact you about this show. Fieldsports Britain is out 7 PM UK time every Wednesday, and this has been Fieldsports Britain. Good hunting, good shooting, good fishing, and goodbye.